On May 9th, Joe Biden signs a document, a law on transferring military aid to Ukraine. Lend-lease is legislative regulation. It is a law that establishes a simpler rule for military and financial aid to be delivered to other countries. Before Russia has invaded Ukraine, the US had only once resorted to such a practice during the Second World War.
I'm signing a bill that provides another important tool in our efforts to support the government of Ukraine and the Ukrainian people in their fight to defend their country and their democracy against Putin's brutal war.
From 1942 to 1945, allied countries of the anti-Hitler coalition received from the United States the most necessary things: tanks, airplanes, artillery and fuel, food and other goods. In addition to weapons, the Lend-lease allowed the coalition to be supplied with strategic resources. For example, critically needed steel sheets for tanks production in the USSR were delivered from the USA in unlimited volume. In fact, American aid enabled the Soviet economy to sustain the war effort.
If Great Britain goes down, the Axis powers will control the continents of Europe and Asia and Africa and Australasia and the high seas.
The share of financing for the USSR was more than $11 billion. That's only a fifth of the entire World War II Lend-lease program. However, recalculated today, that amount would have been $180 billion. Only a tenth of the debt needed to be paid back. After all, the law allowed not to return equipment that was destroyed during the war, for example. As part of the Lend-lease, the USSR received 11,500 airplanes, 12,000 armored vehicles, 412,000 cars and much more. What could Ukraine get? In 1942, the Lend-lease was aimed at the struggle of democracy against Nazism. The new Lend-lease is designed to arm the Ukrainian democracy in the fight against the revived offspring of the Hitlerism, a new racist ideology. Half of the $40 billion is direct arms aid. The rest is financial support for the economy, such as fuel supplies. This doesn't mean that Ukraine gets any weapons now it wants. The Lend-lease is not an amount, not a list of weaponry to be transferred, but a mechanism. And what goes on the list is determined on a case-by-case basis. In fact, there were supplies even before the Lend-lease. The list has been revised and expanded 10 times since August 2021. M777 howitzers, Javelin anti-tank systems and Stinger air defense systems. They have already helped Ukraine gain a significant advantage in the battle. The question of arms supplies gives us a chance in technological and firearms advantage over the Russian Federation. In fact, we are now fighting a third-generation war. We are practically fighting with weapons from the Soviet Union era. On the Russian side, it is slightly more modernized than ours, but if we receive Western arms, we will in fact be able to fight a fourth-generation war. And with this advantage in technology, which will give us a firepower advantage, we have every chance of winning this war and putting an end to 21st century fascism. However, in order to develop the advantage and achieve a breakthrough in the war, heavy artillery is needed, with a combat range that exceeds the Russian Grads and Smerch systems. The M217 MLRS is the US Army's multiple launch rocket system. They are capable of firing unguided rockets to a range of 45 kilometers, high-precision M30 and M31 missiles to a range of 70 kilometers, and most importantly, ballistic tactical missiles to a range of 300 kilometers. President Zelensky says on Monday he expects a positive response to the transfer of these systems to Ukraine at a meeting of defense ministers of 40 countries.
We call on every country, from the US to every European country, concerning the MLRS, multiple rocket launch system. They would enable Ukraine to take initiative and free its territory from Russian occupation.
Without the Lend-lease supplies, the Soviet economy would have produced far fewer tanks and planes, bombs, mines and shells than it actually could, and it would have been much more difficult to use all these equipment because of the lack of fuel, vehicles, communications equipment and etc. In a one-on-one fight between the USSR and Germany, without the aid of the Lend-lease, without the diversion of considerable forces and without more than a quarter of the ground forces, USSR could hardly have defeated Hitler. Now help stop Putin and arm Ukraine.